Hello, everyone. Happy American Independence Day. We are all so happy to have you here to celebrate the wonderful freedom that America has. The whole world gets to celebrate with us today. Welcome to the Critical Moves podcast. I'm here with Al. How you doing, Al? Happy Independence Day to you.
Thank you, colonist.
Tim, happy Independence Day to you.
Woo! Hello, everyone.
Yeehaw!
Yeah, we're doing it today. We're doing this. We're going to talk about some indie games, and I am very excited. I love indie games. What about you guys? Do you guys play a lot of indie games?
Yeah, one or two. I think that it's because I'm tight and poor. Indie games tend to be cheaper, don't they? So that's probably the reason why I go indie, because I can save some money that way. But I like what you did there. I'd just like to point out that I think that's really clever. Indie-pendence Day. Is that right?
Oh,
Yeah, you know,
man, you are a genius.
funny you bring that up. It wasn't my idea. We got this guy that does our podcast named Al. His idea.
He sounds like a dick.
No. He's good. So I like indie games also, but the reason why I like them is because I feel like the indie games are the ones that have the fresh ideas. That's where the new stuff happens. That's where you find the unique games. Yeah. Unfortunately, the big AAA games, they feel very formulaic to me, and so I find that I'm more and more intrigued by indie games as the years go by.
It comes down to risk. You know, if you're running a AAA studio with a huge budget and a massive staff, you can't risk putting out something which is going to fail. You can't take chances. You've got to stick to what you know, because you have to be certain of success. Because if you fail, you're talking millions of dollars which are lost. Indie games have the freedom to experiment, and I think that that's the beauty of indie games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. As well as the love and the passion is there as well, right?
Yeah. Their games really do become their babies.
Yeah. I mean, as Tim and Jack interviewed Tatsu, it would be a month ago or so, and when he talked about Sanctuary Shatterson, which of course, unfortunately, he's not involved in anymore, but he described it as his baby, and that was really that was quite an emotional hit for me, because I love the Sanctuary project, and I was completely unaware of. I was aware that Tatsu was tied to the project, but I wasn't aware of to what level. But for him to be quite emotive in the way he talked about that, I think it was when Tim had asked him, or Jack had asked him, if you had unlimited money, what game would you make? And it was actually the game that he was making, and that really hit, actually, because that was his passion. It was his baby. And I think that you're right. We see that in indie developers, and you don't see it in corporate shills.
Absolutely not. Call of Duty 10 is no one's baby.
No, it's not.
Okay, let's start with the first game. Al, do you have an indie game for us?
I've got one or two. I mean, there's a lot, but there's two. When I was reminded that we were recording this today, I thought I better have a look and see what indie games I remember, because I look at games all the time, and you know, I'm running this podcast. You come into contact with a lot of people who want to talk about their particular indie games, and some of them are great, some of them not so great, but two really stand out for me. And some of them are, some of them are interesting. We'll say that. But two really stand out. But I'll start with the first one, and that is The Last General. Have you seen The Last General?
No, I have not. What's that?
No. Have you?
I've seen just bits.
Just bits. So there's been a lot of noise in the in the gaming press recently about Broken Arrow. You saw Broken Arrow was released last month. Yeah, and when it was released, we covered it. I think it was episode 23. I think we covered, Nuno and I got our hands on a preview build of it, and we covered it. And I think you were on that episode, Tim, as well. And it looked really good. It was a modern day military real-time tactics game. I think we had an argument over whether it was a military simulation of RTS or a tactics game, but it looked so promising. And on release, it got panned quite badly, to the point where the developers actually had to put out... It was released, the Vanguard edition released on the... I think it was on the Tuesday, with a full release planned for the Friday. And I think on the Wednesday, they released their first patch. So the game had been out for less than 24 hours and they released their first patch because the community were just so upset by the fact that you couldn't play a skirmish match against the AI. You couldn't. They only had 3v3, 4v4, or 5v5 matches, and if you didn't have 3 people to play with, you couldn't have bots to fill those extra slots. And there's no skirmish mode. I think that they've put these things in with an emergency patch within 24 hours of release, of their Vanguard release. And I thought that was quite telling. But The Last General is a very similar setting. It is a modern day, I think it's set just after the Cold War, a modern day military real-time tactics game. But it looks so different because of the way that it's set up, because of the mechanics. The developer said there'll be 1 million plus battlefields that you can fight over, because they're all procedurally generated, and each one's like a big island, and on these islands you'll have towns, you'll have villages which you can occupy. Each one will be different. Each one will, every game will be a completely different game, because it will be a completely different map. So just, like I say, just after the Cold War, so your typical Western Alliance and Eastern Bloc adversaries. But I think the way that it really stood out for me was the scale of the game, because you play as the general. So you control an entire theatre of war. You're not just playing, this isn't like Command & Conquer where you're, 2 feet from the ground controlling individual soldiers and individual tanks. You're controlling companies, you're controlling platoons, you're controlling regiments, you're controlling logistics, you're controlling supply lines. And considering it's a one-man, which is just the beauty and perfect for an indie story, it's a one-man development team. The amount of work and effort and love and joy that he's put into the game about killing people is I don't know. It's watch the trailer, have a look at the trailers. I'll link the trailer in the description for this, because it looks exceptional, and I'm hoping. I know we criticised Broken Arrow because of the infantry side of things, in terms of there was no point in taking infantry because they just got killed very easily. You couldn't use them to occupy buildings. Buildings just got blown up because there was no demolishment. Is that a word? Demolishment mechanics. Terrain destruction mechanics. So destruction mechanics. So buildings just got blown up and your troops died. Rather than having to send in infantry to clear out infantry, you just hit it with a tank a select number of times and then it was gone. And I'm hoping that The Last General looks at Broken Arrow, looks at what it got right and utilises bits of that it needs to and that it can, looks at what it got wrong and fixes them. And I hope it is an exceptional modern day military title.
Now you're talking about it like you control it from the macro level. Can you get in close and control it on a more micro level? Can you get 2 feet above also? Or do we not know
you
that
can
yet?
You can zoom in, yeah. I mean, you can zoom in and you can see. I don't think that there's a hierarchy in terms of, if you think, I mean, you're ex-military, aren't you, Joe? So you'll know, you've got regiments, companies, or the other way around, platoons, squads.
Yeah.
So there's a hierarchy as you go down to the sides. I don't think you're going to be able to control individual soldiers, but I imagine you'll be able to control squads, and then platoons, and then companies, and then regiments, all the way up. But it's the idea. You're not playing as a president of a country. You're not playing as a squad commander. You control. You are Dwight D. Eisenhower. You are Montgomery. You are Colin Powell or Stormin Norman. I'm showing my age there, aren't I? Norman Schwarzkopf. Is that his name? Do you remember from the Gulf War? You are the general controlling a theater of war and everything that entails.
No, it makes sense. And I like the idea of that. I remember one of the Men of War games had a mode where you could do that, where you could control a theater, and I didn't find that very fun, but I love that idea, and so I hope this one nails it. I'm really excited to learn more about this last general game.
I think one of the things which I really liked was I think in the way that I'm going to try and describe this as best I can. It's if you see this on the YouTube version of this podcast, you should be able to see a visualization of this, because I'll make sure that the videos are all wonderful and aligned. But I think the way that it works is you draw arrows. So you will draw the path that you want your troops to take into a particular fight. So you can do frontal assaults, you can do flanking missions, you can synchronize and time everything. You control the direction that your supplies and logistics and reinforcements are coming in from. So it's less about that close-in squad management, I guess, and more about, if I had control of this theatre of war, where would I move my troops? How would I move my troops? How would I move in my supplies? Where would my artillery come from and my tanks come from? It looks really good, in a nutshell.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's an indie game. Everything that we know about indie games is that don't ever expect them to release when they say they're going to release, because usually it's one person. Or a very small team in some respects. And if they say that it's going to be released in 3 months' time and it isn't, they let people down. So they tend to keep their cards very close to their chest in terms of, it will be released at some point.
Yeah, and I think it's best when they do that, because when they don't and they have to push back, their fan base is mad. That just happened with a game I suggested a while back, Kingmaker. They were supposed to be Q1. They pushed it back to October, and I saw a post online where a moderator was like, "You guys need to stop sending death threats to the maker of the game." Come on, be grown-ups here. And so, sometimes it's better to just be vague.
I mean, we had a similar situation with Sanctuary Shattered Sun, because they initially said that they'd be releasing the Kickstarter and the demo that they're working on in July, so this month, and that's been pushed back. And there is a degree of concern within the development team. Well, how are we going to break this news? When we break this news, what are they going to say? How are the community going to take it? But one thing I find about indie games, I appreciate Kingmaker got death threats. I'm sure there wasn't that many, but the communities tend to be quite wholesome. They tend to be quite supportive. They understand, because we're all adults. They understand that these things don't happen overnight, that you don't have 200 people in Silicon Valley or wherever they develop games working on a title. This is a small team with limited resources that have to prioritize certain things. And when it was announced that the demo had been delayed for Sanctuary, it was completely positive, the response was. Because very transparent for the reasons why, and as long as you do that, I think that people are okay.
All right, let's move on to Tim. Tim, what do you got for us? What's your first indie game for us on American Indie-pendence Day?
I've got something that I would describe as a military sim, but from the future. Which is
Love
kind
it.
of an odd thing to say, since usually military sims are very realism focused. But I would say this is very realistic in that sense. And it's Nebulous Fleet Command. So it's a real-time tactics game happening in space. So you command a bunch of spaceships and you fly them around and you try to pew pew the enemy spaceships. It's quite unique in a sense that it focuses on different aspects of warfare than a lot of other games, and I kind of like that. It's focused on the seeing your enemy, and so you know where to shoot, kind of thing. It's not just like, oh, you have your spaceship and the enemy has their spaceship and they're shooting at each other, and then the HP very slowly crawls down. It is quite slow paced, I would say. So it's not like you have to click fast and get everywhere. It's more of a, let's see what happens. Oh, something happens over here. Okay, I guess we're gonna go over there now. So a lot more thinking about playing the game rather than clicking around, I would say. And yeah, you try to figure out where the enemy is through sensor warfare. So you can have your ships try to stay hidden through going into passive mode, for example, or try to detect where the enemy is in a full 3D landscape. And I find that intriguing. It's not my favorite game because I don't think the genre is exactly my kind of game, but I find it very refreshing. And I mention so often how I'm seeking new kinds of games, and this certainly hits the spot on that. It is also multiplayer focused, even though there are single player scenarios. But so that's something that I enjoy as well. But yeah, I have this question a lot when I look at sci-fi or when I read a sci-fi book or something like that, and there's space combat involved. I ask myself a question like, is this really realistic? And then yeah, you have stuff like Star Wars and like, yeah, this is complete fantasy, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be realistic. But then what I like about this is that it really tries to simulate it, and then it scratches that itch of like, oh, what is the future going to look like, or if there is space combat in the future, what could that look like? And I feel like that gives me that answer, and I find that cool to for a moment inhabit the future.
Now,
How's
is
this?
it it's a battler, right? You're just against another person.
Yep. So you have your fleet, the enemy has their fleet, and you try to pew pew the enemy until they're not there anymore.
Got it. How's the scale, Tim? Because I always think about space games. I want scale. I want Star Wars is as you say, it's science fantasy. We love Star Wars, don't we? We all love Star Wars, don't we, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
Except for who was it, Jack?
Oh yeah, but we don't talk about Jack. Jack is off my Christmas card list. And Star Wars space battles were based on real world naval battles in terms of it's quite close in. It's it's not science fiction. How's the scale for this game? Because I always think that a space-based combat game you should be looking at, and I love the fact that you said it's slow-paced. It should be slow-moving. It should be vast distances. What's this one like?
It is. It's huge distances. And yeah, for example, you go ahead and you try to figure out where the enemy is, and only when you can see them from a very far away, like, oh, they're in this area, so we're gonna shoot in this direction, and then you shoot your missiles, and your missiles take like a whole period of time to get to the enemy, so you have that suspense of like, is it gonna hit or not, So no, the scale is absolutely huge in that sense, and you don't like see the enemy exactly. You have like a radar blip of the enemy kind of thing,
Mm-hmm. So
it
almost
sounds like a
space
submarine
sonar.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess in that sense, a bit like a submarine game. Sure.
Pretty interesting.
Is there I know you said it's kind of geared towards multiplayer. You know I don't do multiplayer. But you don't do Star Wars. I don't do multiplayer. Okay, no one's perfect. I like the idea. I like the setting. It sounds really interesting. It sounds intriguing. What is there for single player?
There are scenarios and there's a skirmish. It is still in early access since 2022. It's one of those games. But a full campaign is planned, just not yet released. And there's recently actually been a quite big update to the game. So they're still actively working on it. And there's been a quick update where you can now have carriers. So you can have ships within your ships and then send those out.
So a full campaign is planned?
Yep.
Is this going to be one of those early access games that stays in early access forever and then eventually fades and dies? Or is it going to...
Time will tell, but for now they're still working on it. So far so good.
Did I see that it has a lot of mod support too?
I haven't looked into that personally.
Oh, okay.
I haven't gone too in depth into the game because it's like tactics is not my usual go-to, but I did appreciate these aspects of it. Yeah.
Cool. All right, I guess I'll go next. My favorite indie game right now is a game made by a pair of brothers. It's called Star Traders Frontiers. It's been out for a long time. It's made by I don't know how to say their name. Tresi. If they ever listen to this, I'm sure they'll be mad at me for mispronouncing it. Please tell me. Someone in the comments tell me how I'm supposed to say that last name. But they are so incredibly involved in this game. If someone comes out and complains about a problem they found or a bug they found on Reddit, inevitably in the comments of that Reddit post, one of the brothers will respond and say, I just fixed it. Updates coming out in a day. They're really involved. They're serious business, these two. And the game that they have two big games out now, and Star Traders is the one I like. And it is so interesting. You start in space, obviously, but you start as a captain of a ship, and you can choose what kind of start you want. Do you want to have a captain that starts higher level? Do you want to have a captain that starts with a better ship? Do you want to start with a lot of contacts that can help you? You have all these things you can choose between, and it changes how you start the game completely based on that. And then you go out and try to make it. There's all these classes you can choose from, and you can be a trader, you can fight people, you can do missions, any of it. And you can build out your spaceship. There's all these different options you can choose for a spaceship. Like the one I just built, I was trying to make it unhittable. So I put in all these computer programs all these computers in the ship to make it so it's hard to hit. And right now, no one can hit my ship. And so I don't have any weapons. I just charge in. No one can hit me. And then I send in my Space Marines to board other people's ships. And then you can do the combat. The combat's like turn-based. It'd be really similar to any of those turn-based games where you have like a 4-man team and you just watch them. It's real simple animation, but looks nice. It's pretty cool. And one of the other cool things about it is the PC version is the same as the phone and tablet version. And so you can potentially, if you do a little save game magic, you can play it on your computer, your phone, your tablet, anywhere, and keep the game going no matter where you're at. So I love that game. I hadn't played it for 3-4 years, came back and they'd added 10 new classes, all these new stories. They did an interview once where the developers talked about how they have this mad wall of quests with strings all over everything about how everything ties together to try to keep track of everything. It's pretty interesting. They've got another game called Cyber Knight Flashpoint that I haven't played, but it looks cool too.
So this game, Star Traders Frontiers, is it? Are you playing against other people? Is it like a?
I don't think so. I've never seen any multiplayer. You're just in this world by yourself, and all these things happen. Plagues happen. The whole galaxy can get invaded. All these things can happen. So you're just a person in it.
And you just have one ship?
Yeah, you can buy a new ship, but you can't have more than one ship at a time.
Only one ship.
So you like what you do is you buy a new ship and you send it to dry dock, and it takes like a year to get all the good updates in it and stuff like that. Then you go fly your other ship around for a while.
And you're trying to do business, like trading stuff from one planet to another.
You could. You can also do exploration. You can go fight aliens. There's these really powerful bug aliens you can go fight. You can go try to help a faction in their wars. There's all kinds of stuff.
So it's a bit like Star Sector if you could only have one ship.
Okay, it is a lot like Star Sector. Yeah. Well, and it's got the turn-based combat. Yeah, I don't think Star Sector had anything like that with where your crew could fight other crews.
No.
So your crew fights another crew when you board their ship.
Yeah, like you can have a special crew that are just there to fight.
And what's the purpose of boarding the other person's ship?
You can kill their captain. You can kill their pilots. You can kill. If you beat their boarding team, you can sabotage their ship. The whole point is to weaken them when you board. You just keep trying to weaken them to take out their ship. Because
to win the battle,
yeah, if you destroy the ship, you can only salvage the remains. But if you disable the ship, you can take their fuel, you can take their cargo, you can take their, right. There's all these things you can do.
So it's piracy.
That sounds fun.
Can be.
Yeah.
Can be.
Okay.
You can do anything on it, honestly.
Yeah. Is there space, because I think what you're talking about is you talk about turn-based crew versus crew, so that's typically when a boarding action is taking place. Is there space-based combat as well included?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's plenty of people who don't do the boarding at all. Have you ever played Faster Than Light?
Uh-huh.
It reminds me of that. It's just two ships, and you have all these abilities you can choose from, and if you've got, like, good navigators or good pilots, they may have abilities you can use. It's turn-based, just like the crew combat. It's a card game. It's like a turn-based card game, and you watch the animations as the ships fight each other.
And it's the Trace brothers, is that right?
Treze.
They're probably stinking Europeans. So, who knows what they're.
Those Europeans.
If they're good indie developers, they probably are stinky Europeans.
Well, all the best ones are, aren't they? All the best ones are. So, and you're going to contact them and you're going to get them to come and talk to us, aren't you, as well?
Oh, my goodness. That would be amazing. Trezes, Trusus, whatever it is. Come on.
At least come and tell us how to say your name. That's all you've got to do.
Tell us about your process.
We don't care about the games. Just how do you say your name?
I do. They don't, but I do.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, let's move on. Al, do you have another one for us, or are you out?
No, I've got another one, and we're there's a bit of a theme here, and it's we've gone from Nebulous Fleet Command to what was yours called again?
Star Traders Frontier.
Star Traders Frontier.
Memorize it.
And we're going to go. I will. We're going to go from Nebulous to Star Traders to Fallen Frontier.
Uh-huh.
So we're sticking with the space theme. I caught a glimpse of this probably about a year ago, and I was like, "Oh, that looks interesting," and it reminds me. It's a real-time strategy game set in space, but it's got like a very much like the aesthetic of The Expanse. So it's quite industrial in the way that it's set, in the way that it's showcased. It's not flashy and clean. I guess you've been looking at a cross between The Expanse and the Aliens universe. I guess everything has a function. Nothing's there for decoration. Have you? I think you've seen this one as well, haven't you, Tim? You've seen Fallen Frontier.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous. I think that's like one of the big things is it looks gorgeous.
It does.
And it's crazy because it's made by one person.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he's brought on other people to help with the art and things like that, because you have these incredible spaceship models, and they're quite the word be utilitarian. You know, they all have a particular use. There's a space barge which is used in mining operations, and it looks completely different to your cruisers or your frigates and all this kind of stuff. But there's so many of them. I think it's going to be really, really in depth. I think the amount of detail that's going to go into it, and the amount of hours that someone like me, who has a bit of an addictive personality, would plow into this is just pun out of this world.
Classic.
I know that was terrible. That was terrible.
It also looks like it has really interesting mechanics. With like a solar system and like deploying radars in different spots that have different visions and so on. I'd be really interested in the game. Yeah, one thing is, okay, it's either one man or a very small team of people doing that, and the updates are long in between each other, so who knows when this is going to come out.
Well, I think the last thing they said was that it's been pushed back to 2025, but we're now halfway through 2025. So we've still got 6 months or 5 months left, but it wouldn't be unexpected for it to be pushed back to 2026. But it has such a huge following as well, doesn't it? It's really big on Steam in terms of its wish list, in terms of its follows, and there's a huge Discord community as well. And it just looks like I think it's going to be an event when it eventually does release, as long as it's good, and that, I suppose, is always the risk, isn't it?
Oh well, I would say like take your time with it. You know, like no need to rush it. I mean, as long as they can keep going with it, I guess. I mean, it must be quite exhausting to work on a project without a return for so long. But I think it's best to take your time with it.
No,
Absolutely.
there's going to be obvious comparisons with Homeworld. Tim, do you think that this is? Do you think that it's going to be like Homeworld, or?
It's kind of hard to tell. So I watched some gameplay of it, and I don't know about the pace of it. I don't know. Is it going to be like a slower, longer campaign that you play over like several days, or is it just more of a match that you play over like an hour or so? It's kind of hard to tell at the moment, and I'm not. Maybe they don't even know themselves as they're developing it, and they're still like play testing it. I believe that they're still in the phase where they're play testing a lot of things, like, oh, what is fun? Like, should we do it more like this or more like that? So I believe that's the reason why they haven't shown too much of it. So it's hard to tell really, and I'm not sure they even know.
Well, it's set in a procedurally generated. So I guess it's a bit like the Lost General then in that respect, a procedurally generated solar system. So that would indicate to me that it's more of an open ended. I don't want to say the word. It's like an open ended Stellaris style. In terms of, you're not going to have I'm sorry for mentioning it. All we need to do is mention
one podcast. Can we go?
Just going to mention just mention that other one game, and then we've done Critical Moves bingo. But I think the idea that it's.
I've been thinking about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, you just you've had your chance. You've got this procedurally generated solar system, and that doesn't lend well to a mission-based campaign structure. I don't think. I think it can, of course, but how do you set objectives? How do you if you're not designing the maps for a mission, it's very difficult to set objectives beyond destroy the enemy or take those resources or anything like that. So it looks like it's going to be open-ended rather than a structured sequential mission system.
It could be a skirmish though, right?
Yeah. Well,
it looks so big though.
Yeah. It does look big.
The thing that I want to see, and I think that you don't always see it in space games, is making full use of the 3D space. You know, I think that's missing from a lot of space games. Where you get a little bit, but you don't get to. You know, it almost just sits on like a 2D plane with a little bit of depth.
Well, the game I mentioned, Nebulous Fleet Command, does have the 3D space, and I'll be entirely honest with you. I don't mind the 2D flatting of the space. I think our brains are really not made for that 3D thing, and it gets really confusing very fast. And it kind of makes controls also really difficult to handle. And it adds something, but it doesn't add enough, I feel like, to justify all this added difficulty. And I'm personally really fine with 2D. And from what it looks like, Falling Frontier also sticks to the 2D version of it.
And I think that brings up another challenge, I guess, and that's in terms of what's in the map. You know, because if you play your typical land-based RTS, you've got hills you can hide behind, you've got forests you need to move through, you've got rivers that need to be traversed, you've got choke points and things like that. Whereas space is it's 99% empty, isn't it? So how do you make such a game like this interesting to play over? It was always a thing with the I always remember the Empire Total War and the naval battles. You're just moving your ships towards another group of ships, and it's whoever gets to fire first tends to win. There's a risk that if you're developing a space-based game like this, that you're going to fall into those same traps. You need to make sure that you can use the space, you can use the environment. And I've seen asteroids and planets and things like that, and I know that the projectile it's did Tactical like a simulated projectile game. So you fire your shots, and they'll ricochet, and they'll intersect with other objects and not hit their targets. They're going to have to work hard, I think, to make the combat side of things interesting, just because of the setting.
Yeah, they did seem to have asteroid fields that could block vision as well, and like you could position your fleet behind a planet. It seemed like to keep it out of vision or something like that. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to choose from, right?
Yeah.
So that's Fallen Frontier, and it's hopefully due out in 2025. All of the links to these games, whether released or not released, will be in the description of this podcast episode and in the YouTube video as well.
Okay, Tim, do you have any more for us?
Two games that I mentioned briefly before, and I'll mention them again. One is High Fleet. It's a strategy combined with action RPG kind of elements, and it's also very very small team. One guy developing it, and it's really 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 cool. It also actually, similar to Nebulous Fleet Command, deals a lot with sensory warfare. So there's radar elements. Do you see the enemy or not? If you put on active radar, the enemy will see you also more easily. So you can try to, fly without being seen too much. And what it is like this really cool worlds that exists where you command one or more kind of like diesel punk flying fortresses. So It's not really, it's not very realistic, but they're like these enormous like metal fortresses that are flying around with like enormous amounts of fuel, shooting like projectiles all over the place, and that's this world that they live in basically, and there's nuclear warfare involved as well, and you fly around through the story trying to get to the objective, and whenever combat is engaged, you have to fly around and on this 2D plane and shoot down the enemy. The theme is really well done, very thematic. Music is amazing, hypes you up for the battles and everything. And the story is very intriguing and interesting. You sense that there's a very big world surrounding it. The strategic element, it's not strategic only. There's other elements like I mentioned, but there is a lot of strategy involved. You can construct your own ships. You can change ammunition. You can load up on missiles and everything. And no, it's very fun. And then it is kind of hardcore in the sense of if you want to really do well, you have to pay attention to all the sensory equipment to launch and countermeasure missiles and everything. So it can get quite intense. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Tooth and Tail, which is a very well made, cute, casual RTS. So it's, I believe, the only RTS that I would ever play with a controller, which is kind of crazy to think about playing an RTS game on a controller. But it's very simplified RTS, so that makes it easier. And you basically control one character that moves around, constructs, recruits, and then fights.
I remember this game. It's so adorable.
Yeah, it is. It's really cute. It's not very difficult. You can learn the game in 5 minutes, and you can sit on your sofa with your friend. I think that's the best way to play it, with two friends next to each other with a controller each in hand, and you're just messing around. And yeah, it's little forest critters basically. You recruit forest critters to fight alongside you and fight the other ones.
Sounds interesting. Yeah, I really like the idea of the High Fleet game. I was looking at it while you're talking about it.
Are they airships?
Yeah, it's just like flying for. It's like Diesel Punk, Like imagine if Diesel was like the thing that made everything go around, and there was so much of it that people would pump it to just these huge engines that would fly constantly up in the air, these immense fortresses. And I think the coolest thing about the game is this theme. I think that that's the really strength of the game, is that while you're playing it, you really feel the atmosphere of this world building, and I am impressed by that, and I feel that a lot of strategy games could use that instead of like this really dry, calculative, analytical game, to add this spice, add this like cool factor. And I think that could help make strategy games a lot more appealing to a wider audience as well.
But you only get that in indie games, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
That's the beauty of these standard games. You only get that because this is someone who's saying, this is the game that I want to play. It's the game that I've envisioned. I'm making it for me, and if people like it, great. And I think there's a real beauty in that approach to game development, which you don't get with these big budget AAA titles. It sounds like this is someone who said, I want to have a diesel punk flying fortress, so I'm going to make one. And he hasn't gone to focus groups or to consumer testing. What do you think of this? Oh no, I don't like the idea of that. He said, fuck it, this is what I want, so this is what I'm going to do. And he's done it, and that's resonated with you because you like the style of game that he's produced, that this person's produced. And you see that a lot in the indie sphere, and you don't see that in this clinical corporate crap that gets pumped out by
Absolutely.
perfect alliteration, clinical corporate crap that gets pumped out by these big companies.
And now a word from our corporate sponsor.
Yeah, we don't have any sponsors. This is
Well, not anymore.
No, someone's furiously deleting an email that they've just sent to say, "Hey, we'd really like this." Oh no, they don't like us. We're corporate. Get rid of it. Coca-Cola. Sorry, guys, but
there you go. Nice. Okay, I've got 2 quick ones I'm going to talk about. I am completely changing my plan. I was inspired by all these space games. So, real quick, before I talk about my last space game, there's an indie game that I played the crap out of years ago that I really enjoy called Battle Brothers. It's actually weirdly similar to Star Traders Frontiers in the fact that it's another one where you do turn-based fights and then you go live in a world and you just try to survive. And this one, you're in charge of a mercenary company. It's essentially low fantasy, super low fantasy, medieval times. And you're in charge of a mercenary company and you try to recruit people. It's expensive to pay people though, so you can't recruit too many. And you're doing a lot of messed up stuff, so you have to make sure that they can handle the mental strain. And then you try to get rich and keep growing and keep taking missions, and eventually the world gets real dangerous and you're probably gonna lose and die, but on the way you're gonna have a lot of fun. So that's Battle Brothers. That's the first one. The second one that I'm gonna finish with, I've already talked about, but it was a long time ago. It's a game called Terra Invicta. I think Tim was on that pod where I talked about Terra Invicta a little bit.
Great game.
And it is such a unique game, in my opinion. Only an indie developer would make a game like this. It's essentially a near future, current time, real time, or not real time, grand strategy game. But rather than taking over a country and painting the map, you're a secret organization that wants to influence countries. And when you have influence over a country, you then use its resources to further your agenda, right? Your agenda could be, in this world, aliens have attacked Earth, and there's people who hate the aliens and people who love the aliens, right? And based on which faction you choose, that could be your deal, right? And so you start with a nation and build from there. And you may not want to be the most powerful nation at the start. In fact, in this game, I don't know, I haven't played it in a long, long time, but it used to be that Kazakhstan was one of the best places to start because they had all these space points. But yeah, you just try to build up, and eventually you try to put a probe on the moon and gather moon resources, and then maybe Mars, gather resources, build a space base, and go try to fight the aliens. And even that is really it's similar to some of those games we've been talking about where it's not science fantasy like Star Wars. It's very, okay, we're going to try to imagine how space fighting is, and this is how we think it's going to be, and so this is what you have to do. It's also a super long game. I think I put 50 hours in a game and was maybe half done. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. I'm looking right now and trying to see how much it is right now. It's not that much though, especially for what you get.
Yeah, they're still working on it too, so there's still updates on it.
Yeah, it's $25 right now. 14 double cheeseburgers.
You buy expensive cheeseburgers. You buy really expensive cheeseburgers.
Look, I'm fancy. For a guy who does currency and double cheeseburgers, I'm pretty fancy. But yeah, they're putting out updates about once a month, every couple months. It's really moved quite far since it came out. And so I highly recommend. I haven't jumped in a long time because it's one of those games where I'm like, it takes so long to do a game. I really want to make sure that if I'm going to play a 100-hour game or 50-hour game, whatever it is, I don't want them to have a new thing that's coming out next month that's going to be awesome. Because I don't want to have to restart again. Even though it is really fun.
Going back to Battle Brothers, have you seen... So this is Overhyped Studios who made Battle Brothers. Have you seen Menace, the game they're working on at the moment?
You know, I saw something about it a while ago, but I don't know if they were far enough in yet to get a lot. I'm looking at it now as you're talking about it. It looks quite interesting, honestly.
So it's due for release Q3. So what's that? August, September, October, or is it?
Yeah.
July,
you see who
August,
the publisher
September.
is?
Yeah. Who's the publisher?
Hooded Horse, so you know it's going to be good.
Yeah, and the game looks really. It's like it looks like an XCOM style game set on a distant planet, and it looks quite gritty in the way that it's done. It looks really good. It looks really interesting. I've been following it for a while actually, and it looks like it could be quite an interesting title. I think I'll contact Overhyped Studios. I'm going to send them an email and tell them to come and talk to us about Menace, and you can quiz them about Battle Brothers as well.
I will. I want to know if they have any plans to integrate Warhammer into Battle Brothers. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness, it would be the coolest ever. Anyways, that Menace game actually looks pretty cool, and it looks like it's got so many more things than... What was the game you compared it to?
What was the...
I can never remember that game. The game you compared it to, XCOM.
XCOM, yeah.
Some of that. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's got... the breadth of stuff you can control is grander than it is in XCOM. Like I see people controlling tanks and whatnot. That looks pretty interesting.
It does. It looks like quite an interesting title. So, yeah, one to watch.
For sure. Okay, anybody got any more games, or should we get out of here?
No, but I want to ask, what are you doing to celebrate your Independence Day?
Oh, typical things. Probably bathe in red, white, and blue confetti. Towel myself off with a flag. And then... No. it used to in where I live, everybody does fireworks. I don't even really like fireworks anymore, so we'll probably just barbecue. And my girls hate them. I got young kids; they hate the sound of fireworks. So we'll probably just be inside watching movies, Disney stuff. What about you guys? How are you guys celebrating American independence?
I'm celebrating American Independence Day by flying to Portugal next week.
Nice.
And I might go and see Nuno.
Jeez.
Man, so
that's gonna be... Take a video together and put it on the channel. Do a video pod for the people, and so we can see you two together.
Maybe. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel, or maybe we'll put something on there. Yeah.
I'm confused. Didn't Independence Day already pass? Isn't it the 7th day of the 4th month?
Opposite. See, you guys do it backwards where you live.
That's a good point there. Yeah,
do it backwards.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Maybe I can pass one more honorable mention for a pretty cool indie game called Beyond All Reason. Pretty cool game. Independence. You should check it out. BeyondAllReason.info.
I had no idea that was coming, and I'm embarrassed to say that. You got me, Tim.
I'll knew.
Thanks everyone for joining us on Independence Day. And please share this with your friends if you hear something you like. If you know a game developer who wants to come on here and talk to us, that sounds great.
Cheers, everyone.
All right. We'll see you, everybody.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.